All right, I believe we are on the air. Welcome to Real Time Recorded Live. I'm with Michaels from Talking Points. I'm with Zeus Caravala of ZK Research. Hello, Zeus.
Hey, how's it going? Real time recorded live. That's kind of a interesting statement.
Real time recorded live. It all kind of balances out. It's
Yeah,
perfect. Makes as much sense as anything else in this industry. Let's leave it at
yeah.
that. Um, so it's been a couple of weeks. I know we've both been traveling a lot and to different events. So, um, first, anything just in general you want to just start off with? Um, Say hello to Sally or anything like that, or
I've said all over all the Sallies. Obviously, all these events we go to, there's one topic that dominates them all, right? Which is generative AI, large language models, and what the heck's going on with those things. So,
Oh, I hadn't noticed that. That's an interesting observation. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. My feelings on generative AI have increased quite a bit. I wasn't so sure after Enterprise Connect. It stole the show at Enterprise Connect. I wasn't too sure of how much of that was hype, and how much of that is actually like we're at a new inflection point. And I think that in the past few months since Enterprise Connect, the months, March, April, May, so 6 weeks, um, I'm feeling that it is an inflection point. I do feel that generative AI is going to change enterprise communications as we know it, mostly for the better. But I think there's a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of complexities.
yeah, it is different though. I every time I go to one of these events, people ask about how do you prevent hallucinations and bad answers and things like that. And the thing that people miss is it's not it's chat gpt isn't what we're going to be using in the workplace, right? So if you like the analogy I've used, if you take search for instance, we use Google to search how do I find Dave Michael's home or what the weather is going to be. It's these broad questions, right? If I'm a lawyer though and I want to look up case history, I go to LexisNexis, right? If I'm somebody in the automotive industry, I'll go to Carfax or something like that. And so these narrow search engines that are designed to help us find answers to things within these specific verticals. And I think there's broad AI and there's narrow AI. Rowan used to talk about this all the time, actually, when he was the CEO of Five9. And I think that's the part that people are missing. It's not like we're going to take chat GPT the way it is and just try and use it in the workplace using public information. We're going to run it on our own data sets. We're going to build our own models. We're going to, and we'll have curated data that we use to help us answer these questions. And that's the big difference. And so I think, it is an inflection point because it's become easier to use, easier to build. The models have become more mature. But I do think the data sets we work with are, where a lot of the, if you want to call it innovation, but that will be next to make it applicable to certain businesses.
I agree with everything you said there, and I do want to emphasize one other point though, that generative AI, at least OpenAI's ChatGPT reached million users. I forget how, like, record time. And I think one of the things that people aren't fully appreciating with generative AI is the accessibility of this. And so previously with AI, we could do all kinds of wonderful things, but it required a back room of Stanford graduates to pull it off. And now all of a sudden, the most powerful AI known to man or to humans is soccer mom compatible. And I think that's going to, because I was talking to somebody just the other day and they were saying, oh, it's going to get used to do certain things in certain ways, and the economics and the incentives are all wrong, and it's not going to really use to do things the way we really need it to be done. And it's like, well, then go use it yourself. We've never had it more accessible before, and so I mean, I've
Yeah.
never done any programming with AI until ChatGPT,
I don't think we've hit the inflection point though, because I know when we've hit the inflection point when we stop talking about it, right? So if you think of back in the early 90s, I used to go to internet conferences. There's no internet conferences now. right? There used to be IoT conferences. There's no IoT conferences now. Those are just sort of embedded in the fabric. We connect things, we use the internet. And I think eventually we'll get that way with AI. Just the stuff will be built into the stuff we use, and we won't really think about it. And but right now we're thinking a lot about it, and that tells me we're still pretty early in.
It's a great observation. Not only are we very early, but we know that it's going to change a lot of things, and it's going to take a lot of throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what's going to stick, right? And so we're going to see a lot of that.
Remember, Cisco used to run an IoT conference, and I said to Inbar, who was running the conference, said, "If you're still running this event in 5 years, you've failed as a company."
Yeah, it's the same voice over IP, right? Voice over IP conferences, or like VON, or whatever.
Yeah.
Now it's just communications. But it's a good point. So we are doing live. I am watching comments. I'm hoping to get some live participation. And if we don't get live participation, we'll stop doing these lives. It's not worth the hassle. But I'll just say it once. If you do want to express anything, please use the comment bar, whatever. We're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn, and on YouTube. And I believe all three of them support comments. I'm not 100% sure of that. So one of the events that I went to, I know you were invited to it, but couldn't make it, was the sprinkler event in Dubai. And I don't know about you, ZK, but I didn't before the event know much about sprinkler. Do you know much about sprinkler?
I knew a little bit about them just from talking to John Chambers. It's one of the JC2 venture companies. But I knew they played in contact center and customer experience, but hadn't really, other than what he had told me, I hadn't really dove deep into it. So
yeah, it was really interesting to learn about them, and it was actually quite thought-provoking, because the reason they invited us, and I think there were about 5 or 6 of us there from the typical enterprise comms or contact center analysts. They reached out to about 6 of us there, and none of us really knew much about sprinkler. But the rest of the analysts knew about Sprinkler, right? So Sprinkler is an established company, right? They're doing over 700 million in revenue. They've got marquee customers like Microsoft is on their client list, and so they're pretty well established. And they've recently, I think about 2 years ago, expanded into contact center as a service. And I'm kind of numb to this, right? How many companies have not expanded into contact centers? If you haven't expanded into contact centers as a service, you're like way out of it. So I was kind of numb to this. It's like, okay, sure, like have a seat, and we'll get to you soon. But it turns out that they're pretty well established, and they're particularly well established in social media. And so you think of social media companies. I can't even think of the name right now. But there's several social media companies. And really good at listening, really good at monitoring social media, really good at managing. If you want to respond, not all companies that listen to social media respond to social media, but if you want to respond, they've got the engine to manage the tickets and manage the responses. But a lot of companies just listen, and so they've got this really strong social capability. They also have this really strong digital channel capability. They don't even call it digital channels; they call them digital capabilities, but they have a ton of digital channels. So they just kind of added voice, both inbound and outbound, to their customer service capabilities. So they've actually got a really robust engine all of a sudden, and they were kind of below my radar, but they have all this capability. They understand agents, they understand AI, they understand generative AI, back to the previous conversation. And so they've arrived in the contact center space, and so they wanted to be sure that the contact center analysts knew about it. So they invited us out there, and it was really interesting. One of my interesting things is contact center, for 50 years has always had this moat around it that was really hard for competitors to get into, and it was really around call routing, ACD functionality. That was a moat. It was in the old days, it was hardware based. That became software based, and it's become much more accessible. And so I realized that the current contact center companies that we know and love and follow all the time, they never talk about ACD anymore. I mean, that's like what you were saying about voice over IP and these other things. It just kind of disappeared. So with that moat gone, all of a sudden companies like Sprinkler are like, hey, we can do that too, and they just added ACD functionality to their stack, and they've got a pretty robust offering and a pretty robust client base, and they're already doing this with a lot of customers. So something to watch for sure. I'll just share with you one of the things that they did was they shared their mission and vision. You know, I always love that stuff. And I got to hear
Well,
something.
it does raise the question, Dave: is voice the product of contact center, or is it a feature? Right? It's a little bit what Microsoft has done to calling or to unified communications. Right? They've turned it into a feature of chat, and so contact centers lived and died by voice. It's been the product that you start with. A company like Sprinkler could actually commoditize voice because it's all the other stuff. And if that happens, though, that opens the door, to the long-awaited entrance of Salesforce and Zoho or whoever else decides they want to just plunk in voice as a feature. And
because that's always been the assumption is companies like Salesforce don't want to deal with voice. They'd much rather partner with other companies and let them deal with the PSTN and all that stuff. But it's becoming much more accessible. It really is this whole idea of what is contact center. Because if you look at like the Gartner Magic Quadrant for CCaaS, one of the requirements to be in the Magic Quadrant, to be in that report, is 50% of your revenue has to be with inbound communication. Do they say voice or they say? I think it's just inbound calling, or I'm not sure if chats count. It's inbound voice is what it says. 50% of your revenue has to be inbound voice. So that's a lot. That's a lot of your revenue. And now we're getting companies like Sprinkler who are coming out with 50% of their revenues is inbound messaging or digital. What is contact center? I think we're going to see a lot of questions there. But let me cover their vision, and I think their vision. I like their vision, to be honest with you. It's
Sure.
quite simple. The CEO was there, Raji Thomas, I think his name was, to be the world's most loved software company. Nice and simple, aspirational. I like simple vision statements like that. And the other thing I want to share about Sprinkler is they're trying to create a new category. It's interesting. They're all over the map. When you look at the analysts who are covering them, like I said, a lot of the analysts there I didn't know. A lot of the analysts I did know, but don't normally see. But they were just in Gartner's conversational AI report. I think they're mostly associated with content marketing platforms. They're in some social suite reports. So they're all over the map. And the category they want to be in doesn't really exist outside of Sprinkler, but they're trying to coin it. Unified Customer Experience, which would have the acronym UCE, but of course we can't use UCE. We use CXM, Customer Unified Experiences. I think that's the way it works. It doesn't sound right either, but
spell that out.
Yeah, we're gonna have to work on that tagline. Now I got to go back to their website and see what it says about their tagline there.
It is interesting though, because as I've gone to other shows like Adobe, and Content Square and things like that, all these companies have their own definition of the customer journey. Some play front end, some play back end, right? Some do marketing, some do sales, some do web, some do mobile, but nobody really does end-to-end customer journey, right? Because it starts from first Instagram click all the way to customer service, right? And so everyone's got their own definition of it. And like I remember at Adobe Summit when they did this omni-channel session, and I thought, well, that'd be kind of interesting. And I go there and it's everything but voice. When I asked them about it, they said, well, voice is really hard. So we stick to mail, chat, or email, chat, messaging, and web or something like that. And so that, by definition, it is omni-channel, right?
Yeah.
But it's the front end of the digital omni-channel, or omni-channel is for digital front end, not back end voice, right? So
and the rest of the journey. I mean, okay. So I looked it up. They're using the term unified CXM, Unified Customer Experience Management, and the unified is an interesting word because unified is hasn't really worked that well for the rest of the companies using unified. But customer experience management is kind of interesting. So
especially for Unify.
Sprinkler. It was a first class event too, CK. I mean, you and I have been to Dubai many times. I don't know if they have anything over there besides first class, to be honest. I guess they have, presidential class or something, chic class, I guess it is. But
Chic
it
class,
was really nice over there. But they went all out. They didn't. This was a nice event. So we have a question. We have a question from a viewer. Look at that. It's a hard question from John Seaton. Thoughts on Google Starline demo? Now, I saw the headline on this one. I didn't really read up on the new one. I saw that it was dramatically downscaled, which was good because the first version of Starline, which was a couple of years ago, or maybe just over a year ago, was over the top new. It was trying to do 3D, and they had to redesign the cameras, redesign the spatial audio, redesign everything, and it just wasn't that practical, in my opinion.
It's
so I think the new one is much more simpler.
Yeah, it's the Star Trek experience, right? Where I'm not talking to you personally. I'm talking to I guess a virtual avatar of you. I haven't actually seen the demo in person. I saw the blog they posted about it, and it actually it rendered pretty well. And if the demos of what they have are actually really the demos, then it works pretty well. So I think it's pretty expensive to get up and running. It requires a lot of kit and a bunch of cameras and things like that. But I do think that that's the trend of where we're trying to go. Cisco demoed some of that at last WebEx1 and stuff. It required a headset still and things like that. But
this one's different, and I think this new version of it, the first version, I think is what you're describing mostly. But unfortunately, John, it seems like neither one of us are really up to speed on the second demo of it. But I did see that they're trying to make it more cost effective. Now, I did write about Logitech's Project Ghost, which I compared I called it a pencil versus Google's Space Pen Starline, and the Project Ghost is really interesting to me because that one already has a market. It will work with Teams, Zoom, and Google Meet equipment or solutions. So there's already a huge installed base that could use Project Ghost. And Project Ghost is just so simple in what it does. It's basically a holographic effect, and it's not three-dimensional, but it puts the person that you're talking to in front of you without a bezel. It's through reflective technology. It's the same technology that's used in the Disney's Haunted Mansion, where they reflect instead of ghosts, it's the person you're talking to. But it's just so low tech. It is so low tech and so simple. I can't believe no one else has done this. And so John's already now he's provided a video. So we have.
Yeah, I saw the video on the blog, and it actually for Stalin, it actually is pretty. It's like looking through a window at somebody, and that's the beauty of AI, right? You don't need to send the entire data set. You can infer what it is through AI. You can create lifelike images and things like that. So it's sort of like the immersiveness of telepresence without all the stuff that you need to do telepresence.
Yeah,
that's the way I thought about it. So
yeah, now I've got my insider report coming up due, and I actually have a placeholder in there for the Project Starline. So I'm glad that you brought this up, John. And I'll look at this demo you sent. And I will be putting my thoughts in there, but I already have it as a placeholder because I saw it in the news, but unfortunately I haven't got there yet. But that was a good question. I appreciate that. So after the sprinkler event, I took a week in Europe. That was nice. Had a nice break. And then I went to I missed the Zoho event because I stayed in Europe. But Zoho always intrigues me. Actually, Zoho and Sprinkler remind me a lot of each other, and I made that comment. And apparently, they have some common leadership, which explains some of the similarities. But anyway, the week after that was the 5.9 event in Porto, Portugal.
I heard they were in the old Talk Desk building, right?
the old Talk to Us building, it came
How's
with
that for
building and staff. And so Daniel Silva kicked things off. He's the lead engineer over in the Porto office, and he worked in that building before Five9 was there. And I have to say it was a good event. I think they combined it. They had an analyst event first, and then they had their regional customer event, Five9 Nation, and or Five9 Summit. I don't know. I can't keep these hashtags, but they did back-to-back events. They were very, very efficient, very, very effective. Zeus, you and I were at the one that they did in Napa a couple of years ago. They haven't done an event in over 2 years, because that was the Napa event. And there was like nothing similar between the Napa event and the Porto event, except for great wine. That was about the only thing that was similar. The thing is for Five9 is that they are in the zone. If I ever saw a company in the zone, and we've talked about Jonathan Rosenberg being the CTO at Five9, and it's like, what's he doing there? What is he happy there? What's going on there? And the answer is he is in heaven right now, because he's like this nerd CTO that loves this technology. And we thought that maybe contact center was a little too confining for him, but generative AI changes everything, and he is in his happy spot. He's blossoming. I mean, this is so exciting for him. He did a presentation for the Five9 crew, an internal presentation. He did a presentation for the analysts. He did a presentation for the user conference. But since he's been there, and since Rowan went there, I think Five9 made a pretty strong shift towards AI and automation. And now with generative AI kind of changing the game, they feel like, in many ways, the industry is catching up to them. And they're one of the first companies to actually announce generative AI products, not just announce them, but actually launch them. And they're definitely in their zone. They're doubling down on AI and automation, and we got to meet the new CEO, Mike Birkland. What do you call him, the new CEO or the old CEO?
I met him before, actually. I used to talk to him quite a bit before they hired Rowan. And I know it's good to see him back, because I know he got a little sick there, and a lot sick, I suppose. So it's good to see him back in the helm. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he seems really excited about where he's at. He's in, it's one of these. If you know about his story, he left because of cancer, and he licked the cancer, and he's healthy. He got a clean bill of health, and he came back, and that's a nice story, and we're all happy for him, etc. But it made me really think about these second chances, and when you get a second chance. And if you get a second chance, do you go back and finish what you started, or do you go do something else? I want to go do something else. And I think it's really interesting that he decided to go back and finish what he started. And he also, I did an interview, and in fact, you were giving me crap about the noise in my interview, but I did the interview with him. He also has a new vision and mission statement. I also like his. Not only is it short and sweet, but also aspirational, just like Sprinkler.
To be the world's second web software company.
He wants to bring joy to the customer experience, and I think that's a great, very aspirational, because most people would not talk about customer experience as something about joy, but a joyful experience, I should say. So a new term, JX, the joyful experience. Unified JX, maybe, I don't know.
Eric, Yuan always talks about spreading love and stuff. This is becoming a
happiness. Yeah. So he's focused on joy, and again, I really do feel that they are in the zone. I really feel that a lot of things are going their way right now. A lot of companies are trying to catch up to them in money regards. And key, because I guess it goes back to Rowan, but they acquired that inference company, and that came with this great studio, low code, no code studio. And so you were saying earlier about generative AI, you can't just use it by itself. So they basically got their studio and generative AI as a drag and drop, and so you can build these workflows out really nicely with generative AI, and of course all the backend integrations are built in to the studio as well. So talking about making some really sophisticated AI accessible to your users. So they're really in the sweet spot right now. That's right where they want to be. I think a lot of other it's not going to play out as well for a lot of other contact center companies because they're going to have more trouble building new ways to work with generative AI or retiring major investments they've made in their own AI to make generative AI work. So thoughts on
Barry, the CFO, is the easiest job in Wall Street because he knows 90% of the revenue coming into the quarter. So for him to forecast out, it's just a little bit here and there. But they've been on a roll a long time, and their business has largely been on autopilot as they can grab more and more of the share. It'll be interesting to see what eventually moves that stock price back up, though, because it's hardly their market cap's like just over $4 billion compared to the 12 it was at one time.
Yeah. Got another comment here because I made a reference to my noisy video with Mike Berkland. I had a really bad interview with Mike Berkland because I failed to pair my lapel microphone, and Zeus was giving me crap about how bad it was, and I turned it into a success story. I don't know if you saw it, Zeus.
I saw that.
I got that noise reduction, removed the noise with the assistance of Cisco WebEx, and it's kind of because Cisco's tough the competitor to Five9, so it's kind of Cisco, you really blew it with that new technology because it's helping your competitor. But it's a nice little story there. That one interview, two posts. That's the way we like. That's the way we like to do it at Talking Points. There's been actually, you're talking about. Well, you touched on the financial results. There's been a lot of financial results. And
they have been good against muted expectations, though. That's 8x8 put up a beat and raise. Ring put up a beat and raise. Five9 did as well. Nice has been sort of a machine, so it's not that big a surprise. We'll see what Zoom does. I think they report tonight, right? So but it has seemed like the comm sector has rebounded a little bit. Again, obviously not to the level it was pre-COVID. I doubt it'll be years before we get back to that. But
you got to be careful with that because most of the results that I saw, I think all but one, were double-digit growth. I mean, and so it may be muted expectations, but double-digit growth is. I mean, the folks over at Home Depot would be pretty happy with that if that would have happened. But so the recession is indeed there is indeed a recession happening for some sectors and some industries, home improvement being one of them. A lot of things are down, a lot of prices are up, there's a lot of uncertainty in the economy. But for the most part, we're seeing double-digit growth in enterprise communications, and I think that's important to recognize and appreciate.
Yeah.
And I think NICE even raised that guidance. I mean, I think Five9 did that recently. I don't know if they did this.
I think 8x8 raised guidance. I think Ring did actually as well. I think they all brought their numbers up. So so that's obviously good news. For those of us that track it, but it's not, when I say muted, it's not the 30, 40, 50% growth we were seeing for a while, right? So, and part of that's market maturity, right, Dave? Like, I mean, how long can you continue to do that? And the companies have got to consume a lot of the stuff they bought. I think they're trying to figure out what they want to do with these platforms long term as well. Like they're all. I guess all the companies are in somewhat of a state of transition themselves. So they're the customers of these communication companies.
Well, I think that's what I had on my mind. I don't know. Do you have any other topics, or should we wrap it up?
And wrap it up. I guess we'll continue to talk about generative AI from here until until the next big thing comes around.
Until it arrives, until
Yeah,
until it's actually here.
yeah.
But
I have talked to, it's funny. I was at IBM Think, and one of the reporters there told me that he uses it for a lot of the stories he writes. That does a lot of the background for him, and then he massages it from there and things like that. But without a doubt, he's very complimentary, and it's made him a lot more productive. So it'll be interesting to see if, I know schools don't like the use of it now and things like that, but it's a pretty good tool for a lot of things.
it actually does a lot of things really well, and actually it does a lot of things I didn't fully appreciate until Jonathan shared some thoughts. But no, I actually I feel much stronger and more positive about generative AI than I did prior to talking to Jonathan Rosenberg. I mean, he is just so pumped right now. He is he is like a kid in the candy shop, just like this is going to be great. And so here he's I think Five9 is going to be one to watch in that space. And although I did use ChatGPT, one of my podcasts. I put a lot of effort into my podcast. We write the good questions, good interviews, and then when it comes time to posting it, I just write a quick little bio. So I use ChatGPT to create a bio, and it got everything wrong. I mean, and I didn't catch it. I just cut and pasted right into the posting, and I said, "This is all wrong." And it had the wrong title, had the wrong company, and it had all kinds of stuff in there. So that hallucination thing is definitely real. But all right. Well, with that, we'll wrap up this episode, and let us know if you don't watch it live. You can watch. This will be available for replay. Let us know if you like the live format. It's certainly quicker because it used to take us a day or so from recording to posting. So cut that out. But all right. Thank you very much.